Cory, we weren't feeling great on Saturday, but on Sunday, a little bit of life back in this program with the news. We're going to the college football playoff. How's everything going as we kind of take a deep breath this week before going to Oklahoma next week for the playoff?
Yeah, I think everybody had a little bit of anxiety going into Saturday night, waking up on Sunday morning with the announcement not coming until 11 o'clock. I know in our house we had the TV on, and my wife was like, "I can't watch this coverage and listen to this for the next 2 hours until they finally tell us whether we're in or not." But I think the committee got it right. I think they set a standard for playing in these championship games. I think that we're 2 years into this 12-team playoff, and obviously there are some tweaks that probably are going to continue to be made to try to figure out the best way for us to get the best 12 teams in this playoff system at the end. And I think Alabama's body of work kind of spoke for itself. You've got four, I believe, SEC teams that are in the final top 12, five maybe, and Alabama was the number one seed going in the SEC tournament, but they're the last SEC team that gets an at-large bid. And so, I think it's you look at how things kind of ended up, and there's definitely some teams that might be questionable or have reasons for being left out that you could make a pretty good argument about. But here we are. The field is set, and now you get to go play a team that you've lost to earlier in the season. I think it's a really great draw for Alabama from that standpoint, not just because it is an Oklahoma team that you feel like you probably should have beaten outside of some of the mistakes that were made. And there's a little bit extra motivation for this team to get ready to go next Friday and be prepared to go on the road to Norman and find a way to win a ball game to keep their postseason hopes alive.
It was certainly a tough day against Georgia in the SEC championship game, but also that wasn't really Alabama at its best due to some of the injuries. Just how much is having a couple weeks to rest up, heal, get some guys back? How much will that help this football team?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't look good. And there was a lot of bodies that were out there missing. But I think Georgia, and we talked about this kind of going a lot of conversation before going into that game, that Georgia, since we played them earlier in the season, has really trended upwards. I mean, they've been playing some really good football. You can take away the Georgia Tech game. But other than that, they've really improved a lot. And they're a team that was, running the football really well. And for us, it was we played nearly perfect, in the first matchup earlier in the season, 9 for 9 on third down conversions. We knew it was going to take a similar performance from Ty for us to really be in this ball game as good as that Georgia team is. But hopefully this time off gives you some time to get healthy. It's, much needed. There's, Jam Miller, we're not sure what his status was. I think he was listed as questionable for the SEC championship. Cuevas was listed as questionable. And I think those two guys are two that we hope we see as able to go next week. They are critical parts of this offense, not, just so that it doesn't all fall on Daniel Hill. And you got Kevin Riley, who's out, not sure what his status is going to be for the game, but we are a running back by committee football team, and we need the whole committee, not just half, to be really effective. And then Cuevas, we felt his, presence missed in that game last week. He's that third down outlet. He's that reliable hands kind of guy for Ty Simpson. He's the guy that you could throw to that comes down with the football when a big play is needed. And but the other thing too is guys that did play that are just a little bit dinged up. Parker Brailsford was a guy that was injured towards the back half of the season, missed the Eastern Illinois game, kind of had to come in and out during the Auburn game because re-aggravated some injuries. Hopefully he's able to go, because I think the offensive line is going to be the most critical position for us to get right for this game against Oklahoma. We saw what their defensive line is capable of doing. They've got the luxury of only bringing four guys, only rushing four guys, and able to stop the run with just four guys, in our previous matchup. And that is kind of what Georgia did, puts us in a bind, makes it tough for Ty in the passing game to get going. So if you have a healthy offensive line, somewhat of a run game that emerges, you really need all of those things to kind of come in place to be effective against one of the best defenses, I think, in the country.
Yeah, it certainly is a really good Oklahoma team Alabama will face coming up next week. And you mentioned trying to get some guys healthy, get this offensive line playing well. Anything else for Ty Simpson to try and get this offense back on track and to the rhythm we saw earlier in the year?
Yeah, I think there's, we went back and watched the game. There's just some things that are everybody around him's got to help him. He's definitely feeling the pressure, or he has seemed like he feels the pressure to go out there and play to this really high standard. And, which is great, but sometimes that can be debilitating to a point where you're not seeing things as clearly, or you're trying to force too much, or you're trying to make a perfect pass. If you've got open guys, just hit them. Don't try to make a perfect throw. Just get the ball in their hands. That's the thing, is that we had a lot of drops. We've had a number of drops the last few weeks from our receivers. Those guys can really help Ty get comfortable, continue to move the chains, get in these long sustained drives that Ty loves to be in, and that's where we're the most effective. We had a couple of first down opportunity passes that were just straight up dropped. And I know they might not be, the easiest of catches, but these guys are really good receivers, and they've got to find ways to come down with the ball. And if you could do that, it helps Ty's confidence. It helps establish a little bit, opens up the run game a little bit. Don't put us in down and distance situations that they know that we're throwing the football and they're going to be able to drop seven and make it really difficult. You got seven guys guarding three or four. It's really hard. I think Jam Miller coming back would be massive, because he's got a different level of being able to catch the football out of the backfield, and that's a massive outlet for Ty and for this offense. And so, I think cleaning up the mistakes that were made, and there were a number of them in that last game that really were detrimental for us. So hopefully everybody can get healthy, and this offense it's kind of just one of those that the longer the game goes, the more plays they can have that are successful. They build on that success, and they're able to continue that momentum throughout the game. But if they're facing, if they're forced into a lot of 3-and-out situations, it's really hard for this offense to find that level of success and that comfortability that they need to go out there and win ball games.
Then looking back at the SEC championship game too, Georgia able to take advantage of a short field of time on offense against this Alabama defense, and that was really the killer for Alabama in the Oklahoma game a few weeks ago. So Alabama's defense against Oklahoma, does that give you some confidence going into this matchup about how well they played at times? Again, a little shorthanded with a short field due to special teams or turnovers, but that was still a pretty stout performance by the defense.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is playing well. The defense is put in difficult spots. I think that Georgia had the ball on their side of the field a lot, and we were backed up a lot. And it's hard to ask a defense to go back out there after a 3-and-out or only 4 or 5 snaps, and then go get a stop when you're already, when Georgia's got the ball on their side of the 50. You just don't want to put your defense in those positions all night long, because it's a numbers game. It's an odds game. Eventually, these offenses are good enough. If they only have to travel so far to get points, they're going to be able to do it maybe not every possession, but they're going to be able to do it enough where they can put some points on the board. And if we're not returning, with scores from our offense, it could look like the defense is giving up too much. I think the biggest thing for this defense, what I thought, in the last couple of games, while their metrics look good and they're playing good defense, there are certain points in each game where you need critical stops. It's not just the whole game. There's just certain moments late in the game. Maybe we're down. We've got to find ways to get off the field. That's where this defense really needs to start showing up a little bit more, in my opinion. Getting off the field when we're down, a touchdown or down 10 points, and not letting them move the ball 30, 40 yards and still end it with a punt, which is good, but you're now putting your offense in a very backed up situation. Got to come down with interceptions. We dropped 2 of them in the Oklahoma game, I believe, that were thrown right to us. You got to be able to catch those footballs, because those are game-changing plays. Oklahoma's defense was able to make those plays, and we were not. And that was really the difference in the ball game. And you've got to, I know it's asking a lot because the defense has been carrying this team a pretty good amount these last few weeks of keeping us in the ball games. But those are the plays. And I talked to Kane Womack about it. And he said the exact same thing after the Oklahoma game. I said, hey, your defense is playing well. And his response back to me was, we played well, but we had opportunities to play better. And we would have given our team a better chance to win that football game. And we've got to come down with those interceptions. And so that's definitely an emphasis. Forcing some 3-and-outs. Don't let these offenses put together a couple first downs and get favorable field position. And then Georgia's punter was able to I thought he should have been the MVP of that football game, to be honest. What he was able to do of keep us pinned deep the entire football game, only crossing the 50 a few times. That is a massive weapon for any defensive coordinator when you've got an offense that just continues to be backed up and having to fight out of a hole to try to find success.
Well, and how about just from a mentality standpoint, too, for this football team? Again, that was such a tough loss, a disappointing performance on Saturday, SEC championship. And we see this in basketball all the times, even baseball in the postseason. You're kind of a bubble team. All of a sudden, you do hear your name called, and it just gives you new life going into the postseason. Do you feel like something could be similar for this group, knowing they're capable of going on a long run here in the college football playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible for any team. That's the hard part about football is any team on Saturday can win football games. And all you need is an opportunity. I mean, you see the games that we've played this year, they've been tight. And, we've gotten away with a lot of wins. But you give us another opportunity, just like Georgia got another opportunity against us. And you get a couple of weeks off, you're in the playoff, you've got meaningful football games, you've got some time to get healthy. This team is capable of making a run. I think some of the odds makers and some of the people that have written some articles don't give this team very much of a very great shot of making it to the final, but you've made it here, and now the team can rally around what we've had. We've seen the highs of this team throughout the season, seeing what we're capable of doing, and it's a fresh start. You're in, that pressure is off. You've made it to the playoffs. You want to go out there and execute to the levels that we know we can. And I think that we say it all the time in the pregame coverage or during the games. Our best football is still out there, and we're trying to figure out how we can get both sides of the football to play their best at the same time. We've had offense really carry the team during parts of the season, defense carry it through the other parts. How do we put it all together? And this you never know what is going to happen right now. You can find a rhythm, get everybody on the same page, and you go out there and you take care of business next Friday. What that does from a confidence standpoint, leading into the next game, it's just these are little building blocks, and I think it's imperative for us to get off to a good start in each of these games. We've had some games where we've been a little bit slow coming out of the gate. And if we can have some early success, this team can really build off of that momentum.
We're looking forward to it. Well, Cory, a dress warm coming up for Oklahoma, even if temperatures aren't going to be as bad as we originally thought. That wind is fierce on the sidelines. So just be ready for it coming up next week. Look forward to seeing you there. Safe travels.
Yeah, I'm going to be calling the sideline report. Your sideline reporter is going to be in the booth with you guys. Yeah, I'm not staying down there. I'm going to be coming up with y'all where the heat is.
Yeah, we have the technology to make that possible. Anyway, Cory, thank you for your time on Crimson Drive. Roll Tide, man.
Hey, Roll Tide. Appreciate it.